So, what if I told you that the fastest path to success was actually lying to yourself? Because most people who bent reality started by declaring something that they weren't yet, and then kind of following through to make it come true. And that may be something that you've heard before, but I want to break it down in a different way. So, let's start by talking about the difference between your brain and your mind. Your brain recalls things, it basically reacts, it executes, but the mind basically projects. And one way of looking at it is like your mind is where God lives. The mind is basically shaping reality. It's not the while the brain is observing life, the mind is really designing it. And now kind of science is proving this. And if you've been kind of one of those people that believes in prayer, then this makes a lot of sense. But even if you're just a pure science person, this is something that science is really proven is that you're not necessarily separate from the universe. Your brain has a lot more power over the universe than we give ourselves credit for. So the most important thing that you can start to do is stop like waiting on what you want and start really building it because you're in control. So here's the trap that most of us are in. We basically feel like we've got to have the things that we want, then that's going to allow us to do the things that we want to do, and then we'll become the person that we want to become. And, this is something that we've been hypnotized into thinking. We just grow up and we're like, hey, like, here's the next thing that you're going to achieve. And once you get there, like, these are all the things that are going to be cool. Once I have the money, then I'll do all of the things that I want to do and I'll be the person that I want to be, is typically how it goes. But it's a lie. And it's why a lot of people end up stuck because a lot of times they have these desires, but they aren't the person that's going to get those desires. So, if you've been trying to basically earn an identity, it's almost this backwards thing. You most people will believe that money is hard to get. And if you believe that, that becomes a part of your identity. And if you're the type of person that believes that, in our world, deals are hard to find or deals are hard to make. If you believe that, then your mind, which isn't like the brain, will basically do its job. And its job is very simple. It's to come up with confirmation of the things that your brain comes up with. So if your brain is saying, "Oh, like this is difficult," or it'll be really difficult for me to get this amount of money, or all these different things, your mind goes to work and it goes looking for confirmation of those thoughts. It doesn't mean that those are facts, it's just what your mind is looking for. The other person who basically chooses to only see opportunities, to only think that money is easy or that deals are easy to find and opportunities always come to them, that person, their mind goes to work and it goes to work looking for those opportunities. And I think a lot of people hear this stuff and it just goes in one ear and out the other. And they're like, oh, like, this sounds real woo woo and all that. But it's at the core of what makes something a struggle and what makes things kind of flow and just happen to you. And it's not about it being magic, but honestly, like changing your beliefs can just be like magic. Like changing your beliefs are like magic. It's going to shift your energy. It basically is going to align the universe into the things that you're interested in, where those things just pop up. And we see it in reality. Like if you go out and you buy a car, all of a sudden you start to see that car everywhere. That is your mind bringing those things to your brain. And so this is an aspect of the work that most people just look over and don't really do. Even in there, a lot of you, they're like, yeah, I do believe that. But are you living it out? Like you can't say you believe something if you're not living it out every single moment of every day. Like if there are seconds where you're like, oh, you're going and reverting back to being negative and all of that, then you don't really believe it, right? Like there isn't a second of the day that you're like, oh, like I bet I could jump off of a 50-story building and fly. There's not a single second of the day because guess what? You believe in gravity. You have to believe in this like you believe in gravity. So if you're walking around like, woe is me, this bad thing happened to me, that bad thing happened to me, uh, you know, it's just that your mind is going to look for that. And what's really sad is for a lot of people, they really feel good because of that. They feel good, like, oh, it's a scary thing because once you get even outside of just confirmation bias, but once you proven right, there is this release of serotonin where you are literally happy from being miserable. As crazy as that sounds. So it's important not to let yourself think this way. I wouldn't even when bad things happen, like I'm trying to be as conscious as possible, not to allow myself to start thinking about it as a bad thing. It's like, okay, here's that was great because I learned this. I would only think, like, okay, wow, God has something else great for me, or the universe is creating this opportunity from that, or here are the things that are going to happen because that happened. And even when I was in the restaurant, and it's just a little nothing restaurant, so I go back up and I wanted some more ranch for my salad. And I could tell the girl's just like having whatever, she was having a bad day, just had a bad attitude. And I just understand, like, man, like I don't want that job. So she's like, oh, that's gonna no, like you can't have the ranch. Like the first answer was just like no. And I was like, okay, like, well, like, what do you mean? She's like, well, you have to buy it. And I was like, okay, I'll buy it. Like, whatever. It's just like bad attitude. And then she's like, ah, gives a sigh. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, how much is it? Like 50 cents? And I'm like, it's like right there. Like, really, you're gonna make me pay 50 cents for this ranch? Like, so instead of me being like, oh, like that's annoying, da da da. She gives me the 50 cents, and then I gave her a $5 tip. So it's like, whatever, 10x what the cost of the thing was. So like, you know what? I'm just give her $5. So I gave her a $5 tip. Whole attitude completely changed, right? And so this is one of those examples of just like, I'm not gonna let her bring her bad attitude, whatever, like it's just not going to affect me. In fact, like if because I could, and the reason I gave that $5 was really I saw it affecting me, and so it's almost like a tax to myself of like, okay, like this girl is like very annoying, like that's very annoying me. But the point here is like being conscious of how you're reacting and being conscious of like when bad things happen, understanding, wow, like this means that like something great is going to happen to me, because like there has to be a reason, because I know my identity is that great things are always happening. Opportunities are always coming. If something bad happens, it's just a setup because something else is going to come. And I again, like you hear these things being said, but I hope that in this video, for some of you, you again start to treat it like gravity, not like, oh, that sounds like that's a good idea. I don't think there are very few people in my audience that like hear this and like, oh no, I just completely disagree. What I do think that there are people in my audience is that there are a lot of you that don't believe in that like you believe that when I take a breath, air is going to come into my lungs, right? So the other part of this is you need to avoid other people who are negative and who are thinking that way and like, oh, but something bad happened and all of that, because no one, you don't want that rubbing off on you. But there is a metaphysical reality to that old saying about you get what, the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with or whatever. And the key here is that it's only natural, it's only fitting that you're going to be around those people, and so your energy is just going to be impacted. like you're going like that little small interaction with that girl, even if I am in a state of awareness, like I can see how that impacts me. But if you're around somebody, they're going to bring up topics and they're going to want to talk about things, and if you're engaged in those conversations, they're gonna affect your vibration, and that's gonna change your vibration and get you out of the state that you really need to be in. So our goal is to go from having the things that we want and being able to do the things that we want to do, and then eventually becoming who we want to be. Our goal is really to be first, right? Like the whole focus, like everything is like really analyzing who you are, and are you like whatever your goal is, like, oh, I want to be, I mean, like, are you that? Are you that person? Because if you're not that person, that means you're a poor person. And so like that's gonna be make it very difficult to become a millionaire. So like in everything you want to be, it's really getting in tune with that. One of the studies that I love in regards to this was there was a teacher that basically was told that this one student in her class, who was just an average student, was a genius. And so she just treated that person different. And so it was like a low B, C student. And that student, ended up doing amazing on testing and all that. But it was because that teacher had patience. They were like, okay, even if that person's giving the wrong answer, I need to figure out kind of how they're thinking and talk to them because I know they're a genius. So I'm expecting them to be a genius. And so that expectation comes to reality. And one of the things to think about, and this is where we really get into how I want you to apply what we were talking about earlier, which you may have heard before. What I want you to think about is like, what if you became that teacher to yourself, right? Like, what if you just had that level of expectation for yourself where just expect it, like, of course, like, no, like, I am a millionaire, I am this successful deal maker, but like I get opportunities that come to me just all the time. It's like actually like outrageous. And just money is easy, it's not difficult, it's not something that no matter how I was brought up, like that's not the reality, like this is the reality. And so if you had that level of expectation, like the teacher, where you just expect, like, hey, I am a genius. It's funny. I've had people in my life that call me a genius, and I do not consider myself a genius in any form or fashion. But here's what I do: I do expect genius ideas of myself. And guess what happens? Things that come up where it's like, hey, like other people consider those genius concepts. I expect greatness of myself. I expect productivity of myself. I expect opportunities to come that just making money easy. I just expect all these things. And as things happen, guess what that does? Like, as that comes to fruition, then that creates a level of confidence that is going to happen more and more and more. So, a lot of people, even when it comes to confidence, they're waiting to be confident after they've already had the things and doing the things and all that. And that's just, this is not the way reality and the matrix, if you want to call it that, actually works. You actually choose to be confident first. Then the actions are going to flow, the coincidences are going to happen. And, the really cool thing is that actually confidence causes action. Like, it makes action a lot easier to take. When you're not confident something's going to work, guess what? That makes it really difficult to go and take action. And a lot of people think, oh, like I'm going to do the action, then I'm going to get the confidence, right? But it's that shift in who you are first. When you start being kind of in the now and being who you want to become in the future, like basically the world just reorganizes around you. I think identity is really at the root of the reality that you're going to create. Like, who you think you are, reality basically is going to bend to match that, almost like it's your root code for your life. And most people are looking for like something outside of themselves. And the truth is, like, it's all built from within. I think, here's something that may be a little bit uncomfortable. Basically, if you look at even the chairman, like the reason that I have named things like deal maker or chairman is because I want you to become an identity. It's not about just something you do. It's about something that I want to help you become, because that shift in who you are is what makes doing way easy. It makes the reality of like making those things happen way easier. So most people have an identity that keeps them from reaching their goals. You have to I think like you just got to create a whole new identity. Bottom line, like like for most people, if you got an identity of like I've had these bad things happen, or like life is difficult, or I like making like if you just have an identity that goes against what you want, it just and I've tried to coach these people. It's like, hey, like until you make this shift, you're gonna struggle, right? You have to create a new identity and embrace it. Like we said, like you embrace the fact that when you breathe, air is going to go into your lungs and give you oxygen. Now, here's the truth that I'm not trying to play you guys. Y'all are smart. You're not going to believe this new identity at first. Right? It's not like, okay, yeah, I got it. Now I believe it. You know, it's gonna feel fake. It's gonna feel like a lie. And that's okay. That's absolutely perfect. And that's why we get to back to the post of what I was saying. It's like becoming who you want to be, it basically starts with a lie. First you lie, like making $1 million is easy for me. And your brain's like, what, dude? No, it is not, right? But then, as you're just reinforcing that, you're doing that work to believe in it like you believe in gravity. And then you start to take actions because eventually you have the power to basically brainwash yourself. So you only have two options. Either other people are going to brainwash you or you brainwash yourself. You're going to be brainwashed either way. Like I said, either the world or other folks or people are coming to your life. Like either you're gonna be brainwashed by society, which is most people like feel terrible and just all these things, or you are going to brainwash yourself. And I would very much encourage you to brainwash yourself. Then as you do that work, you will start to find micro proofs. So as you find these little micro proofs, just the same way that when you buy the car, you start to see them everywhere, your brain, your mind is going to start to see, oh, hey, there's proof of that. There's proof of that. There's proof of that. And then eventually you start to take some actions based on those micro proofs. That turns into obviously more proofs. It becomes a belief. Then those little micro beliefs start to build out your identity, and then the identity just becomes obvious. And that, one of the things that's really cool is like truth is repetition. Like if you have someone in a cult, they're always talking about the beliefs or whatever, like the leader of the cult is like always, because and then that becomes that person's truth. And so in that same thing, like as you're repeating this process, that repetition is going to become truth. And then your emotions are going to line up with that truth. And then you're going to get more of these microproofs and evidence. And so when you look at some of the most powerful people, you look at like Steve Jobs, who just was incredible at creating basically like a reality distortion field. He told people, hey, this is what we're gonna do. And they would literally say, like, hey, sorry, Steve, like, not trying to step on your toes, but that literally is just impossible. Like the tech for that doesn't exist. Like there's just no way that we can design it this way. Like that isn't going to work. And guess what he would do? Fire that person because he can't have those people around him, right? You should be the same way with the people around you. And eventually, guess what would happen? He was surrounding people who was trying to surround himself with people who thought that the impossible was possible. And then guess what? it became possible. And I love one of my favorites in history is Ali, for his just level of confidence. I mean, like up against the world where they were just like, dude, like people who loved him, like, man, you can't fight George Foreman, dude. He's gonna kill you. He's too big. It's way bigger than you. But he just had that whole thing. Like he that repetition that we're talking about. Like he was the greatest at that. Word. It's just like I am the greatest. Like no, like I am, and just like repetition, repetition. And some of you will need to literally do that. But bottom line is, he saw it before anyone in the world saw it. Conor McGregor, same thing. Literally was predicting all the money, all the knockouts, all the belts, all that stuff when he was literally on welfare, looking at a reality where that was just impossible. And I think that people look at those people and they think, "Oh, well, that's not me. I can't do that." But they're like, I mean, Conor was probably way poorer than wherever you are right now. And the real key here is they didn't fake it. You know what I mean? Like they did that repetition enough so that they knew it and eventually became it and started getting enough proof. And then the world started to agree little by little. It wasn't even like a shift where it's like, oh, he gets his first belt and people are like, oh, yeah, this guy is going to be great. So internally for them, there was absolutely no doubt. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to remove all doubt. And so I want to give you a bit of a cheat code to help you start to lie to yourself, but do it consciously. And the truth is, right now, you are lying to yourself, and most people in a negative way, and you're doing it unconsciously. So we're going to start by kind of doing the micro proof stacking, and figuring out ways to turn these things that may not be evident right now into reality. And here's the thing that's really cool is that you basically have a superpower that most people never use. And that is combining what's called your RAS system with your confirmation bias. So you want to leverage your own bias in your favor because right now it's been leveraged against you. So we talked about the brain before. The other thing that the brain is basically like a gatekeeper. So I mentioned the RAS. Basically, that is your reticular activating system. Whatever you believe, and kind of whatever kind of belief that you give the brain, it's the mind will start to find evidence to support it. So if you believe life is hard, you're going to miss every opportunity. If you believe I always win, then guess what? Your RAS starts to recognize doors that will open. So your mind is going to create kind of the reality that you're putting in it is what happens in reality. And so what's also cool, I mentioned the science before, but basically quantum physics like agrees that observation collapses probability into physical form. And I'm not going to go into all the science, but you can research like the observer effect. So basically, us as observers, we literally affect the observed. So your focused belief is collapsing timelines into a reality when you're not watching, essentially. But you're basically selecting it. So your energy, your mind is basically selecting what the reality is going to look at. And again, it's too much science to go into, but you should research that because, again, that's part of getting kind of these micro proofs. But let's talk about your plan of action. So the first thing is you want to get really specific about the identity that you want. Like I said, like when we're talking about becoming a chairman and being a chairman, like it's not like, hey, go do these chairman strategies. It's like, no, see the world through this lens. And so a lot of what we're building is like, hey, like here's what this looks like. Then basically you want to say, I am this now. And just like really feel how that feels. Like does how fake does that feel? Like, does that feel like a complete lie? And just like understand what comes up, and then you want to journal that. Like, here's how that makes me feel. But then you also want to look. The more that you're doing that, you want to look for those micro confirmations, and then go back and journal and write those. I really like the act of like physically writing. Even more than typing, because there's more of a psychological connection with that. Another thing that's really valuable is like being aware of what you're listening to. So, like listening to music that puts you into the feeling of, or people talking or podcasts or whatever, but that puts you into that mode. For a while, I really enjoyed listening to All In podcasts, just because it was like, oh, this is like all billionaires minus Jason talking, and it's just like getting into that conversation of like, not nothing to do with like what their beliefs are or any of that, but just like, here's what they're talking about and how they're interacting with each other. But what puts you into the place of that identity that you want to become? Starting to redesign your space that you're in every day so that it reflects the identity. And really, really, really important is stop complaining. You gotta stop complaining. Stop talking about your old stories. Stop talking about negative things. Stop revisiting old problems, and more importantly, the old self. Consider all of that completely dead. Like, that's just a whole nother person, and it's just dead, right? It can't serve you in this new identity. So the final switch is you're just not a victim. Like, the most important thing to understand is like, you're basically the writer of your life. If you are a victim, it's because you've decided to write that. You've decided for that to be your story. And if that's what you decide, then no one can help you. So don't just keep it to yourself. Don't complain to them if that's the route that you're going down. And you're also just understanding that you're worthy, that you're already that person. It's just you recognizing it. And that's what the universe and the world and everybody's basically waiting on you to just realize it, say it, and actually mean it. Like, this is who I am. This is what I am now. And then live like it every single second of every day until, reality just has no choice but to agree. I hope this helped. If you got value out of this, please don't forget to like. I really do appreciate when y'all like. I know this is a bit of a longer one, but one thing with liking is this helps spread the message of like this to other people who may need it. But I would love if you share it with friends, and have this as a discussion point. And if you want more breakdowns like this, and also just kind of digging into the next level of like collapsing time, going deeper on reprogramming beliefs, running the kind of reality bending strategies, that a lot of which we use in Chairman. Definitely subscribe to the channel, but also feel free to join us at the link below in the Chairman Club. Would love to have you. Yeah, I've got a lot more cool stuff coming, just on how to use some deeper strategies to rewire your outcomes. Anyways, like, subscribe, hit me up, and I will see you